and welcome to my wonderful knitting life. I am a knitter, a sewer, a crocheter, learning to weave. I'm a teacher. I'm a single mother of 2 girls who are now young adults. And I'm currently working and living on the North Shore of the province of Quebec in Canada. And we're currently having a pretty bad storm. Yesterday there was no school because it was too cold and too windy with the blowing snow. And I think we got down to minus 45 Celsius last night. And I think we might be at minus 41 right now. I keep using my car starter to start my car to warm it up for 5 minutes here and there, just to make sure that it's going to work when it finally warms up and I can actually go outside and enjoy living here. But today's an inside day, and I thought, even though I wasn't thinking of doing another podcast so soon, I thought I would take the opportunity to talk about a finished project, a few current whips, and some future ideas for knitting, some dream knitting projects. So I'm going to start with the sweater that I'm wearing. This is a sweater that I made about 7 or 8 years ago. It's been around for a while, and it is called the Harley Sweater, or just Harley, by Jenny Williams. It is a pattern that you can find on Knitpicks, and at the time I paid for this pattern. I don't know if it's still a paid for pattern, but I'm sure they still have it. It's an absolutely gorgeous sweater. It's full of cables every which way, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I'll stand up and show the rest of it to you. So there is a cable going down the side of the arm. There are cable in their raglan increases on both the front and the back. The bottom has the most gorgeous ribbing to finish off the project, and that matches the cable type ribbing that is on the sleeves. There's an I-cord bind off, both on the sleeve cuffs and at the bottom. And then there is this cowl cabled collar that also has an I-cord that runs through the top of it. It was a top-down sweater that you start without the collar and you start knitting down. And when you're finished, you add on the collar. And it was the first time, I think, that I had done a top-down sweater that wasn't a Fair Isle sweater and that had this complexity of cables. The pattern is written well. However, it is written in the style of telling you every 4th row to increase, and at the same time on every 7th row do something else. So it took quite a bit of legwork to organize that. Here's some of my notes that I made, trying to make sure that I was increasing where I should, doing the cables where I should. And when I knit this and started it, and I was really excited about it, I got going really quickly. And then probably when I got, a good couple of inches into this sweater, I realized that something was a little bit strange. And in fact, what I had done was knit 4 shoulders. Kind of embarrassing to say that, but I was just having a lot of trouble with the way the pattern was written. And I was frustrated, but really wanted to make this sweater. Absolutely adored it when I first saw it. Knew it was one I was absolutely going to make. So I ripped it all back and I started charting, drawing a big oval diagram and marking off in pencil where I was supposed to be increasing, where each of the cables would be going. And I restarted, and as you can see, I made it through the pattern without any difficulty. once you get going, it's fine. It's the getting everything organized, getting some charts developed so that you can figure out all of those different things that you have to do at different times in the pattern. The one thing I would do, and I don't think I'm going to rip it back, but the one thing I would do if I was to do this again was I would not knit this band as large. I would go shorter so that maybe it stands up a little bit more. I love it. I don't really want anything too tight around my neck. I kind of cinched it up to show you the best of it on the video, but it usually kind of curls over. But it's been a fantastic sweater. The yarn that I used is also from Knitpicks. It is Knitpicks Wool of the Andes Sport. So this is a sport weight sweater. And the colorway is Blossom Heather. And they have straight colors in this line of yarn, but they also have yarns that are called heathered. And I don't know if you guys can see the colors that come out in this yarn, but it's very, very tonal. There's times when I look at it, I see a little flecks of peachy yellow in it. It's also got paler pink, a little bit of white in it, and it is a workhorse of a yarn. It's not expensive, and I probably knit this sweater for less than $40, and I make my sweaters very long. So I went through a lot of yarn and I had a ball and a half left. I'm not sure what I bought to begin with because it's going back such a long time. But I do have more of this yarn in other colors, and after enjoying this sweater the last few weeks with the cold weather, I'm thinking I'm gonna have to get that out and use it for something because it's warm. It is 100% Peruvian Highland wool, which needs to be hand washed and dried flat. And I always hand rinse my sweaters in eucalyptus that are wool. I've made this sweater twice. So when I finished this one, I enjoyed it so much that I turned around and I made the same thing in a gray with a bit of a lilac tone to it for my oldest daughter. Sorry, I have a bit of a cold still. And she's a much smaller size than I am, so it went a lot faster. And of course, I knew what I was doing the second time around. I'm not one for knitting patterns twice. I usually like the challenge of something new rather than doing the same thing over again. But it was such a fun one to knit. It had enough challenge in it to keep my brain interested the whole way through. And the Knitpicks Wool of the Andes yarn, just fantastic. I've never gleaned this sweater. There's been a couple of little puffy things that, you know, I've just taken off, but it's never required any gleaning of any kind. Really a workhorse, great price point yarn. So that's my finished object. The last time, or I should say episode 1, I showed you the Botanic Shawl by Stephen West that I had started, and I'm knitting this in Zauberball, which is the color changing yarn, the fingering weight, and I'm also knitting in Holst Supersoft, which is the cream, and I'm kind of in the mid-row stage here, but this is where I am at. I'm at the 18th repeat of this pattern, and I'll just show you the rest here, going right down to the point. So I'm almost finished the colored yarn. So I have to decide how I'm going to finish this. I'm thinking I'm going to keep going with the colored yarn because I don't have that much more. And then there's kind of like a garterish type band of knitting at the end, and I might just do that in the cream only. I haven't decided yet. I don't want to half do the band with the colored yarn in the cream and then switch to the cream if I find that I want it a bit longer, because I really do like to get my shawls to wrap around. And my progress keeper is here. I've never used one of these before. This was a little gift that came with some yarn that I bought from two sisters. I think they're in Southern Ontario, and they have a little company called Full Moon Fibers. And I did order quite a bit of yarn from them for the first time. I'll show that in another episode. It's absolutely stunning, absolutely gorgeous. I found their price point to be very fair for independent company. And they sent me this great little progress keeper, and it's got little tiny beady flecks of purple and blue inside of there, which I love. But I've never used one before. I put it on this project just because I had it. And that's where I was when I did episode 1 at the beginning of January, or January 6th, I think. And I've knit all the way up on my shawl to that point. So kind of a little cheerleader, you know, it tells you where you are and how much you've done. I love it. I don't know that I'll put one on all my projects because this is the only one I have, but I've enjoyed using that. It's been kind of cute. So I'm working on that. It's really soft. I can't wait to finish it and wear it. I just love this shawl. And it's really lightweight, so I don't think it's going to be like overwhelmingly heavy, which I don't like. Being so far north, we have to wear a lot of extra clothes. I have like long underwear under my jeans this morning. I have a merino wool long sleeve shirt under my sweater, wool socks on, and even still, I think I could put another pair of socks on. So to have things that are lightweight, I find is really important, because if it's super heavy what you're wearing, you kind of start to feel like you're being pulled down. So I do like to wear things that are warm but lightweight. So a very new whip to me since I last podcasted, because this really has only developed in the last week, is, I just dropped the pattern, is a sweater called the Stars of Barbro. I'm not sure if that's coming out. When I saw this on Ravelry, it popped up in my feed. It was just one of those right away that I put into my favorites and thought, you know, sometime I want to knit that. And I've usually lately been knitting with fingering weight yarns. And as you probably all know, that takes a really long time to, oh, excuse me, I'm just going to take some water. It takes a much longer time to make a fingering weight sweater than it does something in sport weight or DK or even bigger. And one of the other things that really interested me in this pattern was that it has DK weight yarn, or what one of the suggestions that they use in this pattern is plötulopi or plötulopi. I'm not sure how to say that. It is an unspun Icelandic yarn. And unspun yarns have really become super popular lately. I've heard lots about MarinJaKnits and Nutidin, and I think there's even a small family company that does an unspun yarn in Canada as well. So I got a little bit interested in that as also. So I ordered some plötulopi. I'm not sure if that's the right way to say it. I ordered that from, again, the Knitting Loft in Toronto when they had a 20% off everything sale. And it's not expensive because it does tend to go a long way, especially if you're knitting it single strand. So let me get this out. So I've pretty much finished the yoke. I just put it on some barber cords to see if I was ready to do the bind off. So here we have the color work section, and I absolutely love it. I'm so happy. I think it's quite a statement piece, and I really do like sweaters with personality. or little details. It's just something I'm always drawn to. So this is making me really happy, really making me want to continue to knit it. It is a top-down sweater, and the short rows, for the first time in my life, are not at the back neck. They are done when you finish the color work and just before you split. So they're done at the lower back. I don't want to say too much more because it is a paid for pattern, but I'm curious to see when I put this on how those short rows compare to when they're just at the back of the neck. We'll see what happens. The plötulopi is interesting to work with. I have the two colors here. I used a really beautiful gray. It's got some darker gray in there and some lighter gray. And I used this, which on the camera is definitely coming out to like a rust. But when it arrived, and it's kind of vacuum sealed in plastic, and it's a lot smaller than when you take it out, it looked more like a raspberry color. So as I'm knitting it, it's coming out more of a deep red rust, which I'm fine with. I really like it. But now I've been sort of looking at other colors online because there are some wonderful colors, and I would like to try some of the other ones, but we'll see. This sweater is knit with one strand of this unspun, and many of you know that unspun, if you hold it close together and you pull on it, it is absolutely as strong as iron. But if you pull on it here, it's just gonna fluff right apart. And there's a few little things that I've learned from knitting this. I didn't find a whole lot of information online about plötulopi, but what I've learned is that it doesn't break that often if you're not a tight knitter. I'm kind of middle of the road knitter when it comes to tension. Where I did find it difficult to work with was the cast on. I broke the yarn 3 times just starting the project, and I didn't really want to spit splice it in the cast on, so I cast on more than a couple of times so that I would have a nice solid cast on. It spit splices really easily, not a problem at all, but it is just a new thing if you've never done it. It takes time to get used to that. I have maybe split the yarn 2 or 3 times through the yoke, and not really from the knitting, from the pulling of the yarn from what is called the plait. And so I've used quite a bit of this, so you know it really is more like this, but I found it folds in on itself as you use it naturally. It just kind of relaxes and folds in. But the trick that I found was to always pull out very carefully, a couple of meters, 3 meters, and just put them on the top of the ball like this, so that when you're knitting, there's absolutely no tension coming from pulling from the plait. And when I started doing that, I stopped having difficulty at all. Like perfect, it worked just great. So just a little tip there to help you out with that, but super fun project. I think this is very dynamic. I was surprised that it hasn't had a lot of projects posted, given how beautiful it is. My sister saw this project when I was FaceTiming with her, and right away she said, "Can you make me one of those?" But she doesn't want it in the plötulopi. So I'm having to decide something that might be a little softer for her. She doesn't want a sweater that is scratchy, and I wouldn't say that this is that bad. I have a pretty good tolerance for wool. But if somebody is having issues with their skin, sensitivities, it might not be for them, but I think it's going to be really warm. I can't wait to wear it. It's super light. When I'm finished, maybe this is going to be 300 grams, 350. I'll have to weigh it when I'm done to find out, because it doesn't have a lot of weight to it, especially just being the one strand. And so I'm investigating what I could look into for my sister, and I'm thinking possibly the Holst Garn Tides, which is a 70% wool, 30% silk, and it really doesn't have any scratchiness to it, I find at all. Not as warm. But she doesn't live in Canada anymore. She's in the US, and she doesn't have the temperatures that we have up here. So she doesn't need that warmth of wool as much as I do. So another project that I started, I think I started this in December. And this one really came out of complete curiosity. Because of course we've all seen on Ravelry, and we've heard about Midori Hirose, I think her name is, the Ranunculus. It's an extremely well-known pattern. I think it's got more projects posted on it than any other on Ravelry. And I went to a fiber festival just outside of Montebello, Quebec in the summer called Twist. And I think every 10th person that was there was wearing one of these. And I don't always get drawn to the more popular patterns, but I was very curious to know, what is the draw on this? Why do people keep making it? And not only that, some people have made 10 of them, and they have 4 in different colors, and they've given them to family members. So I thought, well, I'm really curious. I just want to see what is so interesting about this pattern. So I cast on this pattern. So I have split for the sleeves. I've done the yoke, and I'm now just knitting down on the body. The yarn that I'm using, the combination of yarn that I'm using, is something I haven't done before. I'm using one of my cones of Holst Supersoft. This is called Sweet Pea. And when you look at it on the cone, it doesn't look very exciting. It's only when you really start looking very closely at it, you realize there are so many dimensions of color. There's little bits of white, there's little bits of yellow, there's darker pink. It's got a lot of depth to it of color, but in a very muted way. So that's Sweet Pea. And for the first time, I'm pairing it. I don't usually pair yarns, but I'm pairing this one with Titicaca. And I'm not sure what this colorway is. I might have to put that in the show notes if I can remember to look it up. And the Titicaca is also from Holst. And I picked up some. I was just curious. I heard people really liked it, so I ordered, and I ordered from the company directly from Denmark. And it is, I believe, 100% alpaca. It's a lace weight, and it is the softest thing you can imagine. It's amazing. I love it. I know I said that I was really going to knit from stash this year, but this, if I order from Holst, is something I'm going to get more of. So those two together, they don't make a thick weight. There's a little bit of translucent aspect to these two. So if I put my hand in, you can see that there's a little bit of light that goes through. So if you wanted a thicker garment, you could definitely double the Holst, or even double the Titicaca if you wanted, and then have one strand of the other. But you know, it's really pretty. I've tried it on. It's very airy. It fits fantastic. So these two combined is probably giving me maybe like a sport DK kind of weight. It's knit on fairly large needles. Now, there's a couple of things that I found interesting about this pattern. And the first thing absolutely is when it says at the beginning that you can use anything from fingering to worsted weight yarn for this pattern. And I've never seen that. As a knitter of many years, I've never seen a pattern where you can use that breadth of types of yarn, and people do. I've seen people use Nudiden. I've seen people use lace weight for this. That's a pretty amazing thing. It's pretty interesting. The textured pattern is definitely fun. You know, it's cute. It keeps you interested. This is the back here. It keeps you interested as you go along. There's fantastic videos that come with the paid pattern. So if you're not sure what she's saying in the written, you can go and take a look at the accompanying videos. And I had to do that a couple of times just to assure myself that I was on the right track. And yeah, I very well supported pattern with the additional information. She does a completely new to me addition of stitches at the underarm. Now hold on, let me think here. How did we do this? Anyway, let me think. I think I'd have to do this more than once to really figure out what happened. The way that you take the stitches and put them on hold and then have the underarm, yeah, you pick up the stitches, sorry, you create the stitches on the underarm and then knit down. It was completely different from anything I've ever done before. I'm not sure I completely understand it at this point, but it was really interesting. And from a technical aspect, I think if you are a tech person when it comes to knitting, you would find it also really interesting. I'm told that the way this is done, where you have, usually we end up with a little bit of a gap here or a hole when we pick up stitches. I'm told that the way she's done this, and there is a little bit of a trick there, that there won't be a hole. So it seems like that to me so far. So I'm going to keep knitting on that. It's very easy knitting now. I think I'm going to make it long sleeve, not short sleeve. And I'll get back to you on that. Anyway, it's not what I'm going to make 10 of. For me, I have to have a challenge in knitting. If there's not an element of interest and challenge at different points in a pattern, I do tend to put things down, and then they just kind of hibernate and they sit there for a long time. And I don't want that to happen to this one. I want to get it done and give it a try, you know, and see what I think of it when I put it on and what it's like to wear. So that brings me to my future projects. So the last time I podcasted, I told you that I had picked up the Positive Vibration Shawl kit from Mary Maxim. They don't have it anymore. They pretty much sold off their kits for this and what's I think called the Butterfly. It's stunning, stunning yarn. Absolutely gorgeous. I love this. I can't wait to start trying it, but because the sale was 75% off, and this yarn is pretty high-end yarn, I bought both of the colorways, because if you're gonna order, you might as well do it right. I'm sure some of you know. So I ordered the other colorway that they had. I thought this one would be gorgeous to wear with jeans, you know, dark denim jeans, and then have this as your shawl. And these are the colors on the back, but I don't know which one to do first. Maybe some of you who are really good at colors could tell me which one would be the best one for me to do for my coloring. This is definitely going to go on the needles when I finish the Botanic Shawl, but I can't decide which one is going to be for me, and then maybe which one will be for someone else, or maybe I'll use the yarn to knit a different project. This project will definitely be a learning curve with short rows, because that is pretty much what the entire pattern is all about, and that's something I don't have a lot of experience with, other than doing extra knitting on the back of the neck to make the back a little bit longer in a sweater. And I also have a project that I ordered as a kit from Sidsel Hoivik. And I thought I had her card somewhere, but I can't seem to see it now. She is a phenomenal designer. I think she's in Norway, but I'd have to double check again. I think it is Norway. And I ordered this kit from her store. I'll just fold the paper down because I don't want to show the pattern. So this is the Anemone jacket, and it is knit in a reddish orange with gray and a cream. I'll show you another picture here. And I'll just fold it, and let me see if I can maybe put a paper in front here. So this would be there we go, oops. This would be the finished jacket right there. So it's a steeked cardigan or 𝐏𝐻𝐒, which I think is the Norwegian for jacket. It is completely in color work, which is my #1 favorite technique of knitting. I love, love, love color work. I can't get enough of it. And probably my second favorite thing is cables. I just find them so much fun to do. So the yarn that comes with this kit is called Solja or Solje. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. I believe it's 100% lamb's wool. And I've already wound it up with the help of one of my daughters. So the gray almost has a bit of a taupey look to it. I'm not sure if that comes out in the camera. And then there's the cream. And then there's this beautiful, beautiful orange. Wow. Okay, so that orange looks very Halloween on here, but that is not what it looks like. It is a very more dull, a very, very dull kind of pumpkin-y, dark orangey red, but that's amazing. Yeah, that is not what it looks like, but those are the colors. And I'm super excited to get going on that, but I have so many things on needles right now that I almost don't have enough good needles to knit with. I have lots of needles that I don't like. The ones with the plastic cords, you know, the ones that I've gotten from my grandmother and my mother, but I don't want to knit with those anymore. I think it was 2 summers ago. My daughter and I didn't have enough needles to work on a project, and we were doing kind of a little knit along. So I ran into a knitting store and picked up some very expensive needles. Never really heard of them before, couldn't even pronounce the name. I now know it's 𝐂𝐻𝐿. And I started knitting on these, and that was like a lightning bolt hit me. It was like I turned from the rust bucket car into the Cadillac. The difference was amazing, how the stitches just slide. I find I never split my yarn with these needles. They're just amazing. I love them. I would be interested in trying some other high-end needles to see how they compare. I've heard of Knitter's Pride and 𝐿𝐻𝐿 are also really great needles. But since I fell in love with 𝐂𝐻𝐿, I ended up ordering the 5-inch tip full kit. I've ordered the small blue and red kits, and I also now have the double pointed, I guess there's the sock yarn kit of needles. And I pretty much only knit on these needles now because I find them so much easier on my hands, on my knitting. I can knit faster and just more comfortably. So they're the ones I'm sticking with until I have the chance to try one of these other beautiful high-end yarns. And maybe that'll happen. in the future. So we'll see. So just a little bit of an update on some weaving, because I did an episode 2, basically about what it's like to live in Quebec as an Anglophone and a crafter. And episode 2 was about my joining an organization called Les Cercles des Fermières. It's like a women's weaving co-op. And if you're interested in that, by all means, go and check out my second episode. And I just thought I'd give you a little update of a couple of things that happened in the last week. So last weekend, I went weaving, and I picked up 2 projects that I had worked on. So this is one tea towel. And this is the same machine, so the same warp. And this is the other one. And all I really need to do now is hem them. So I'm excited to do that. These are future Christmas presents for sure. The other thing I did with my friend was she helped me warp up my little loom over here. So this little loom is very small. I think it's 15 3/4 inches wide. It's a Dorothy loom by Leclerc, and it is an antique. I do think they still make them, but they would be slightly different from this. They would be more modern. But I got this on Facebook Marketplace a couple of years ago, maybe 18 months ago. And I hadn't really been able to conceptualize putting all of the threads on and how to thread them through in the eyes here, just how to get the whole thing set up. Because although I've been doing a lot of weaving at the Cercle des Fermières, which in English we call the Farmer's Circle, I haven't seen one of the looms prepared or warped. So doing this with this little loom is giving me a really good idea of how this would happen on a loom of any size. And I do think eventually when I move back to Ontario, which is where I'm originally from, and we still have a family cottage there, which is where I hope to go when I retire, I do think I'll get a floor loom of some kind. I can't think of giving up weaving now that I've started this wonderful experience and craft. I just love it. And so tomorrow, if the roads are passable, which is questionable right now because the wind is blowing the snow across the roads and it makes it very difficult for driving. But if I can make it to the Farmer's Circle, my friend is going to show me how to then put all of the thread that we've loaded on the machine. I gotta figure out how to do things backwards. Thread it through the eyes and basically get the loom ready for some weaving. And what I would like to do on this machine is probably some washcloths or dishcloths. I could do placemats. I could do some small hand towels for a bathroom. You can do anything you want. You just have to think about the width. That's your only limitation. But, you know, on a day like today when I can't go outside and I can't really go anywhere, it's just too cold. This is just such a great little thing to have at home, and I'm looking forward to weaving on it. So I'm going to leave it there for today. Not sure when I'll get back to podcasting, but if you are enjoying my channel and my content, it would be great if you could subscribe and give me a thumbs up. Thanks for listening. Stay well, be happy, and enjoy all of your crafting and knitting projects. Take care. Bye-bye.